Jeremy Schaap from the Worldwide Leader in Sports joining me here once again on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Jeremy?
Mr. Eisen, it is always a pleasure, sir. I was thinking of you yesterday when I saw that extraordinary story about the plumber in Staten Island who hadn't realized that he had won $136 million playing Powerball. Did you see that story?
Hey, everybody back in my neighborhood was suddenly checking the pipes to see if there was a life-changing piece of paper down there. You know what I mean?
The paper in his basement for weeks.
Yep.
And he had never checked it because he was somewhere and somebody said, somebody said, they won at that 7-Eleven where you always play, but it was a teacher. That was just good enough. He didn't check.
He didn't think about it until one day it dawned on him, holy crap, I might have this big piece of paper down there. Yeah, I thought about that too. Schappy, what happens with Sepp Blatter? We're even seeing reports that he may not actually be stepping down after all. What are you hearing about what's happening?
Are you really seeing reports of that? Because I tweeted something today. I'd done an interview for my much less well-listened-to radio show with a former member of the FIFA Governance Committee. And I was talking to him, and he said, look, Sepp Blatter has a history of not following through on certain promises, such as the two occasions on which he said he wasn't running for re-election, and he did. So I just tweeted that, but I haven't seen anything to suggest that at this point he's already reconsidering. But it wouldn't be a surprise because, of course, it might be a smart maneuver. You get the heat off. You say, I'm resigning. You say, we've got 6 months to schedule a new election. We'll figure it out. I'm going to enact all these reforms that I was too busy for the last 40 years to enact. And then, maybe you wake up one day and you say, forget that new election thing. I won.
Yeah, but then there's people like Jack Warner who say, I'm too sick to be taken to jail, and then is released from the hospital and starts dancing when he gets home and singing, reggae tunes, and then goes online, holds up an Onion article to say that there's a conspiracy against him, and now he says that he's fearful for his life and he's got he knows where all the figurative bodies are buried. And the question is what's going on to make Blatter say I'm resigning and Jack Warner suddenly say I've got all this information about what I said I didn't do?
Well, I think what's going on, it's the federal investigation taking place in the United States. He was defiant initially last Friday when he got reelected. And then his number two guy, his right-hand man, Jerome Valcke, is suddenly implicated in this $10 million extortion scheme from South Africa to get the right to play host in 2010. It's just getting closer and closer to him, not only in the U.S., but in Switzerland as well, where they announced an investigation of the 2018 and 2022 bidding process. In the Swiss Senate yesterday, they've moved closer to changing FIFA's designation from the nonprofit that makes it something like a yodeling association to an organization that would have to be transparent and accountable. I think he probably had some sleepless nights, and he spoke to his lawyers and FIFA lawyers and said this might be a good time to take the heat off by saying you're walking away.
8-time Sports Emmy Award winner Jeremy Schaap here on the Rich Eisen Show. And look, I'm having my fun with it. We're even having fun with it with our poll question today because some of these characters, they're like out of a Guy Ritchie movie sometimes. With they're
unbelievable.
Right? So, but all that said, Jeremy, your piece on E60, your pieces on E60 about the disaster in Qatar, what Dan Wetzel is talking about on Yahoo Sports, it is a human crisis. There's no other way to put it. Is there any chance that when Blatter does eventually step down and somebody else comes in, that the Qatar Games are revisited in any way, shape, or form? Is there any chance of that?
I think there is a chance. And in fact, someone who I've interviewed in the past, Greg Dyke, who runs the English Football Association, said the other day after Blatter resigned that if he were the Qataris, he would not be sleeping very well because there will be people pushing for a revote. But I still think that's a long shot. I mean, first of all, a revote, I think, is a long shot. I think if there is a revote, it's quite possible Qatar could win again if it's allowed to stand again. And although we've been hearing some people in certain places say they would take the 2022 World Cup, such as sports minister in Victoria, in Australia. I'm not so sure that at the federal level, the United States or Australia or anybody else, even the English who say they want it, really want this World Cup tournament, which many would see as damaged goods, as tainted. They'd probably be happier to wait until 2026. And that being said, you're right. This isn't just a big farce. There is real human suffering taking place because of decisions that FIFA has made, because of decisions FIFA has made not to pressure Qatar to change the way that it treats its workers. I mean, the most stunning thing you could argue is that in that whole build-up to the election in December 2010 to decide who would be the host in 2018 and 2022, nobody really ever asked the question, well, exactly how are you going to build all these stadiums? How are you going to air condition this whole country? There are only 300,000 Qataris. They pretty much don't work as laborers in the construction industry. Who's going to do all that work, and how do you treat them? That never came up. All these other things about this beautiful new rail system and these beautiful hotels and restaurants and air conditioning the whole country, which all turned out to be something that couldn't be done and wouldn't be done. They were overwhelmed by some of those aspects of the bid, and of course it seems other aspects as well, which were not part of the public bid. Mm-hmm. But nobody cared about the workers, and I think people have started to care, and that represents change. But instead of just taking away the World Cup from Qatar, why not actually make sure that the lives of these workers, about 2 million of them who are treated miserably and live in squalor, are made better, rather than just putting it in Australia or England and walking away and the attention of the world goes somewhere else?
Do you think Sepp Blatter shows up at the Women's World Cup at all?
I don't know. I mean, who knows? I think that he has reason to be nervous about doing that.
Because he'd be in North America. He'd be just north of the authorities that that are gunning for him. Jeremy.
Maybe he'll go to the wrong Vancouver. Something could happen. It could be one of those, like, what was that, White Knights with Mikhail Baryshnikov?
Oh, wow.
Gregory Hines things where the plane is forced down.
Look at you, man. You're going White Knights on me. Next, you're going to go Ice Castles. Next, you're going to go Robbie Benson on me here.
Wait a second. Now, White Knights, I mean, it was not a perfectly executed film, but it was an interesting conceit. And there is a parallel here.
Look, I mean, I did not think you and I would be debating the merits of a Baryshnikov film. I didn't know. But if I had to go Gregory Hines, I'd go about that one with him and Billy Crystal, right? I mean...
Oh, yeah. What was that buddy movie? They were both cops.
Yeah.
What was it called?
What was the name of the Billy Crystal, Gregory Hines film?
I should know that.
Running Scared.
Running Scared, everybody. Well done. Mike Del Tufo's a factor. Hey, I had Jim Brown in studio. You got any good Jim Brown stories from your childhood? Or you with your dad and Jim Brown at all?
I don't know how many I can tell.
Okay.
Is that good or bad?
I will say this about Jim Brown. My father played lacrosse at Cornell.
Yep.
He was a couple years older than Jim, or a year older, but 2 years ahead of him in school. And my father ended up being named like second team All-East as a Cornell goalie when he was a senior, based strictly on his performance against Jim Brown in Syracuse that spring in the game that Cornell and Syracuse played against each other. I think he had like 7 saves. Brown had like 10 shots, and my father made 7 saves, and he didn't see any of the balls he said that he saved. They just bounced off his head.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
They grew up together.
Did they really?
They grew up together on the island. Jim was in Manhasset after he moved up from the South, and my father was in Freeport, and they'd known each other throughout that time. In fact, when Jim was a senior at Manhasset and my father was a freshman at Cornell, my father arranged an alumni meeting for Jim Brown with one of Cornell's most famous alumni, the great Bud Holland, who was one of the greatest college football players of the 1930s and was one of the first United States ambassadors to be who was African-American, U.S. ambassador to Sweden. Very distinguished guy, very, very smart guy, but he was unimpressed with Jim Brown's high school transcript and declined to interview him. So
you're the only guy who can basically talk about Manhasset and where, that all that back in the day with Jim Brown and what's the name of the Cornell coach you just mentioned?
The Cornell player? Great player,
Yeah,
Brud Holland.
Okay, so you can go. You're the only one who can do that and White Knights in the same conversation,
Thank
Jeremy.
you.
I think seriously. I don't think there's anybody with that sort of range.
That's and that's what I pride myself on, as you know, being eclectic.
You're a raconteur, sir. Before I let you go, I don't know how into it you are, but do you think American Pharaoh pulls it off? You think he does it, Jeremy?
You know what? I don't. This is my feeling, though, in general about, what is it now, 14 horses who've won the first two.
17.
I'm talking about since affirmed.
Yeah, I think it's
right?
okay.
14?
I'm sorry. You go, Schappy. I'm not going to.
Whatever it is, I think he's the 13th who's attempting to win it after winning the first, because one of them won the first two but didn't run the Belmont. It's too hard a race for the way these horses are bred today. And what you do in the Derby and the Preakness, we've just seen time and time again, has little or no bearing on what you can do in the Belmont. It's a different race, and these horses have been overbred. I'm kind of talking out of my ass, but I've talked to Joe Drape about this a lot. I can name all 11 Triple Crown winners for you,
right?
But I won't bore you with that. And I was there when Spectacular Bid lost in 1980.
Well, I need to stop you though, Jeremy. Go for it. I want it. I want it.
Just getting rolling.
I want. Okay, go. Finish your Spectacular Bid, and then before
this is a true story. That spring, I was down in Florida with my father. We were at Del Miller's stables. Everybody was talking about Spectacular Bid, and he asked me. I was 9. He said, "What do you think of this horse?" I said, "He's going to win the Derby and the Preakness, but he's not going to win the Belmont." And I was right.
You were.
I put $5 on Coastal at Belmont that year, and I won $25.
Okay, before I'm letting you go, I am now Googling Triple Crown winners.
I have it.
You do have it?
I have it.
Okay, you've got the list. Schaap.
I'm now looking at the computer.
Of course you're not.
I'm going to screw this up now after I promised I would get it right.
Are you going to
go take a breath if you need. Do you need a beat?
In order?
No. I'm not going to be able to do it in order, but I think I'm going to get all 11. It's Sir Barton.
Correct.
Gallant Fox.
Correct.
Count Fleet.
Correct.
War Admiral.
Correct.
Omaha.
Yes.
Citation.
Yes.
Assault.
Correct.
Secretariat.
Correct.
Seattle's Flu.
One more.
And Affirmed.
Yes.
Was that in order too?
Not in order.
Okay.
What did I screw up?
You didn't. Well, where did you screw up in order? In terms of the order, what do you
I got a couple of wrong.
Oh, I thought
got
you said Citation before.
You went back to Omaha, too. You had
actually,
War
there's
Admiral.
one more.
There is one more.
There's one more.
Oh, who did I forget? I said
Whirl
Citation,
Away in
Assault,
1941.
Omaha, Count Fleet, Sir Barton, Gallant Fox, Whirl Away.
Attaboy.
Yes.
Eddie Arcaro, right?
Schappy, well done,
Eddie
sir.
Arcaro was the jockey.
Jeremy, thanks for calling in, bud. You be well.
Thanks, guys.
Best to Jocelyn.
Talk.
There you go. Jeremy Schaap, the only man who can talk out of his ass and still win an Emmy Award by talking out of that orifice.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.